The stagecoach lay overturned in the dirt like a broken toy, its wheels still spinning slowly in the hot August wind that swept across the California grasslands just outside Eureka in 1878. And amid the wreckage stood a woman in a torn wedding dress, her face streaked with dust and tears. Franklin Zimmerman had been riding the fence line of his modest ranch when he heard the gunshots echo across the valley. He spurred his horse forward, his hand instinctively moving to the revolver at his hip, though he hoped he would not need it. As he crested the hill, he saw the scene below, bandits ransacking the overturned coach while a woman in white stood frozen beside it. The outlaws were already mounting their horses, their saddlebags bulging with whatever they had stolen. Franklin fired a shot into the air, and the bandits scattered like crows, clearly uninterested in a confrontation now that they had their loot. He rode down carefully, his eyes scanning for any sign of danger, but the thieves had already disappeared into the tree line. As he approached, he could see the woman more clearly. She was young, perhaps 22 or 23, with auburn hair that had fallen from its pins and a wedding dress that was covered in road dust and torn at the hem. "Madam," he called out gently as he dismounted, "are you hurt?" She turned to look at him with eyes that were a striking shade of green, but they were empty of hope. "They killed him," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They killed my husband. We were married just this morning in San Francisco. We were traveling to his family's ranch in Oregon. They stopped the coach, and when James tried to protect me, they shot him." Franklin looked past her and saw the body of a young man in a fine suit lying in the dirt. The driver of the coach was slumped over in his seat, also dead. Franklin removed his hat respectfully. "I am sorry for your loss, madam, truly sorry." She looked at him then, really looked at him, taking in his weathered face, his kind brown eyes, and the concern written plainly across his features. "They took everything," she continued, her voice growing stronger but also more desperate. "His money, my jewelry, the deed to the property we were going to. Everything we had is gone. I have nothing. No family nearby, no money, nowhere to go." "What is your name?" Franklin asked gently. "Olivia," she said. "Olivia Reynolds, or it was Reynolds. I suppose it is Rawlings now, though I was only married for 3 hours before." Her voice broke and she looked away. Franklin stepped closer but maintained a respectful distance. "Miss Olivia, we need to get you somewhere safe. We need to report this to the sheriff in Eureka and see to the proper burial of your husband and the driver. Can you ride?" She nodded numbly. "I can ride. My ranch is closest. It is not much, just a small spread with some cattle and horses, but you would be safe there. We can go into town tomorrow and handle the necessary arrangements." Olivia looked at him, this stranger who had appeared when she needed someone most, and she felt something give way inside her. The shock that had been holding her together began to crack. "You are my only hope now," she said, her voice shaking. "I have no one else. I do not even know if James' family would take me in. I met them only once, and that was 2 years ago when he proposed. I have nowhere to go. Please, I know it is too much to ask of a stranger, but please help me." Franklin saw the desperation in her eyes and felt his heart constrict. He had been alone on his ranch for 5 years, ever since he had saved enough money from working cattle drives to buy his own land. He was 30 years old and had resigned himself to a solitary life, but looking at this woman who had lost everything in a single violent moment, he could not turn away. "You are not alone," he said firmly. "I will help you. That is a promise. First, let me see if there is anything salvageable here, and then we will ride to my place. Tomorrow we will handle everything that needs handling." He searched the wreckage and found a small carpet bag that had been overlooked by the thieves. Inside were a few items of clothing and a small leather journal. He brought it to Olivia, who clutched it to her chest as if it were precious treasure. Franklin then did the difficult work of covering the bodies respectfully with a blanket he had in his saddlebag. He would send word to town immediately so they could retrieve them properly. He helped Olivia onto his horse, then mounted behind her. She sat stiffly at first, uncomfortable with the closeness to a strange man, but as they began to ride, exhaustion overtook her, and she sagged against him. The ride to Franklin's ranch took nearly an hour. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Under different circumstances, it would have been beautiful. Franklin's ranch came into view as they rounded a bend. A simple wooden house with a barn, a corral with several horses, and fields where cattle grazed. It was modest but well-maintained, the product of years of hard work. He helped Olivia down from the horse and led her inside. The interior was sparse but clean. There was a main room with a stone fireplace, a kitchen area, a table with 2 chairs and 2 doors that led to separate rooms. "You can have the bedroom," Franklin said, gesturing to one of the doors. "I will sleep out here on the floor. It is no trouble." "I cannot take your bed," Olivia protested weakly. "You can and you will," Franklin said, his tone gentle but firm. "You have been through a terrible ordeal. You need proper rest. I will heat some water so you can wash, and I will make us something to eat. Are you hungry?" Olivia realized she could not remember the last time she had eaten. The wedding breakfast that morning felt like it had happened in another lifetime. She nodded. Franklin moved efficiently around his kitchen, stoking the fire and setting a pot of water to heat. He pulled out bread, cheese, and some dried meat, arranging them on a plate. It was simple fare, but it was all he had. He poured water into a basin and brought it to the bedroom along with a clean towel and one of his shirts. "This will be more comfortable than that dress," he said, setting the items on the bed. "I know it is not proper attire for a lady, but given the circumstances, I hope you will forgive the impropriety." Olivia looked at him with gratitude. "Thank you. You have been so kind to me, and you do not even know me." "Out here, we help each other when we can," Franklin said simply. "That is just how it is. Take your time. The food will be waiting when you are ready." He closed the door and left her alone. Olivia looked around the simple room. There was a bed with a patchwork quilt, a small dresser, and a window that looked out over the fields. She slowly removed the ruined wedding dress, her fingers trembling as she undid the buttons. The dress had been her mother's, altered to fit her. Her mother had died 2 years ago, and her father had passed just 6 months later. James had been a friend of her brother's, and their courtship had been brief but pleasant. She had thought she was beginning a new chapter of her life, but instead, everything had been torn away in a matter of minutes. She washed the dust and grime from her skin, then slipped on Franklin's shirt. It was much too large, hanging to her knees, but it was clean and comfortable. She sat on the edge of the bed and opened the carpet bag the cowboy had salvaged. Inside were 2 dresses, some undergarments, the journal, and at the bottom, her mother's silver locket. The bandits had taken her jewelry, but they had missed this. She clutched it tightly and allowed herself to cry for the first time since the attack. Franklin heard the muffled sobs from the other room but respected her privacy. He knew she needed to grieve. He ate his portion of the meal slowly, giving her time. After about 20 minutes, the door opened and Olivia emerged, her eyes red but her composure regained. "I apologize," she said quietly. "There is nothing to apologize for," Franklin replied. "Please sit and eat." They sat across from each other at the small table. Olivia ate mechanically, her body needing the sustenance even though she tasted nothing. Franklin watched her carefully, noting the pallor of her skin and the way her hands shook slightly. "Can you tell me what happened?" he asked gently. "If it is too difficult, you do not have to." but the sheriff will want to know details. Olivia took a deep breath. We left San Francisco this morning after the wedding. It was a small ceremony, just a few witnesses. James had business to attend to in Oregon, taking over a ranch that his uncle was leaving to him. We were excited to start our life together. The stagecoach was making good time, and we were laughing and talking about our plans. Then, about midday, we heard shouting and the coach came to a sudden stop. There were 3 men on horses, all wearing bandanas over their faces. They had guns. She paused, her fingers twisting in the fabric of the borrowed shirt. The driver tried to reason with them, but they shot him immediately. Then they ordered us out of the coach. James stepped out first, trying to shield me. They demanded his money and his pocket watch. He gave them everything without argument. But then one of them grabbed my arm and tried to pull me away from James. James fought him, and that is when another one shot him. They pushed me to the ground and ransacked the coach. They took everything of value and then they just rode away, laughing. Franklin's jaw tightened. Did you recognize any of them? Any distinguishing features? One of them had a scar across his left hand. I noticed it when he was pulling rings from my fingers. And another had a strange accent, maybe from back east. But that is all I remember clearly. Everything happened so fast. That information will help. The Delaney gang has been operating in this area for a few months now, hitting stagecoaches and small ranches. What you described matches their methods. The sheriff has been trying to track them down, but they keep moving. Will they be caught? Olivia asked, though her tone suggested she did not have much hope. Eventually, Franklin said. Men like that always make mistakes, but justice can be slow out here. They fell into silence. Olivia pushed her plate away, having eaten only a few bites. I do not know what I am going to do. James had our money with him. I have no way to contact his family in Oregon. I have a brother somewhere in Colorado, but I have not heard from him in over a year. I am completely alone. You are not alone, Franklin repeated his earlier words. You can stay here as long as you need to. I know we are strangers, but I cannot in good conscience send you away with nowhere to go. Once things are settled with the sheriff and the burials, we can figure out your next steps. Maybe we can send word to your brother or to James's family. Olivia looked at him, this rough-hewn cowboy with kind eyes who had taken her in without hesitation. Why are you being so kind to me? You do not owe me anything. Franklin considered the question. My mother always taught me to help those in need. She passed when I was 16, but her words stuck with me. And I suppose I understand what it is like to feel alone in the world. When I first came out here, I had nothing but a horse and a determination to make something of myself. People helped me along the way. This is me paying that forward. I will find a way to repay you, Olivia said. I do not want repayment. I just want you to be safe and to have the time to grieve and figure out what you want to do next. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes again, but she blinked them back. I should rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. Yes, it will be. Sleep as late as you need. I have morning chores, but I will be quiet. She stood and moved toward the bedroom, then paused at the door. Franklin, thank you, truly. You are welcome, Olivia. She closed the door and Franklin set about preparing his sleeping area on the floor. He laid out a bedroll and blanket, then banked the fire. As he lay in the darkness, he thought about the woman sleeping in his bed. She had endured a tragedy that would have broken many people, yet she still carried herself with dignity. He found himself hoping that he could help her find her way through this dark time. In the bedroom, Olivia lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her mind kept replaying the events of the day, seeing James fall over and over again. They had not had a passionate love affair, but she had cared for him and had looked forward to building a life together. Now that future was gone. She thought about Franklin's kindness and wondered how long his generosity would last. She did not want to be a burden, but she truly had nowhere else to go. Eventually, exhaustion claimed her and she drifted into a fitful sleep. The next morning, Franklin rose before dawn as was his habit. He moved quietly, not wanting to disturb Olivia. He went outside to tend to the animals, feeding the horses and checking on the cattle. The work was familiar and soothing. As the sun rose, he returned to the house and started preparing breakfast. Olivia woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. For a moment, she was disoriented, not recognizing where she was. Then the events of the previous day came rushing back. She dressed in one of the simple dresses from her carpet bag, a plain gray cotton that was far more practical than the wedding dress had been. She braided her hair and pinned it up, then emerged from the bedroom. "Good morning," Franklin said, looking up from the stove. "I hope I did not wake you." "No, I was already awake. That smells wonderful." He served her a plate of eggs, bacon, and toasted bread. They ate together in companionable silence. After breakfast, Franklin hitched his horse to a small wagon he kept for trips to town. "We should head to Eureka," he said. "The sheriff needs to know what happened and we need to arrange for the burials. Are you ready for this?" "I do not think I will ever be ready, but it needs to be done." The ride into town took about 45 minutes. Eureka was a small but bustling town that had grown during the gold rush years and had managed to sustain itself even after the easy gold was gone. There were shops, a hotel, a church, a schoolhouse, and a sheriff's office. Franklin guided the wagon to the sheriff's office and helped Olivia down. Sheriff Tom Brennan was a grizzled man in his 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. He listened carefully as Olivia recounted the events of the previous day, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Franklin added his observations about the scene when he had arrived. "That sounds like the Delaney gang, all right," the sheriff said grimly. "They have been a thorn in our side for months. The description of the scar and the accent match what other victims have told us. We have got a posse tracking them, but they are slippery. I am sorry for your loss, Mrs. Rawlings." "Is Rawlings," Olivia corrected quietly. "I was barely married long enough to get used to the name. I will send men out to retrieve the bodies today and bring the coach back. Do you have funds for burial?" "No," Olivia admitted. "The bandits took everything." Franklin spoke up. "I will cover the costs." Olivia turned to him. "I cannot ask you to do that." "You are not asking. I am offering." The sheriff looked between them with understanding. "That is mighty generous of you, Franklin. I will make arrangements with the undertaker. The burials can be done tomorrow afternoon at the church cemetery if that is acceptable." "That would be fine," Olivia said softly. They left the sheriff's office and walked to the general store. Franklin purchased a few supplies and, over Olivia's protests, bought her a proper dress suitable for a funeral, as well as a few other necessities. The proprietor, a kind woman named Mrs. Chen, clucked sympathetically when she heard about Olivia's ordeal. "You poor dear," she said, patting Olivia's hand. "Franklin is a good man. You are in good hands with him." They made one more stop at the church, to speak with Reverend Thomas, a younger man with a gentle manner who had been serving the Eureka community for 3 years. He listened to the story and agreed to conduct the funeral service the following day. "Is there anything specific you would like included in the service?" he asked Olivia. "James was a good man," she said. "He deserved better than what happened to him. I think he would have wanted something simple. He was not one for grand gestures. I will prepare something appropriate, and Mrs. Rawlings, if you need someone to talk to in the coming days, my door is always open." On the ride back to the ranch, Olivia was quiet. Franklin did not push her to talk, understanding that she needed time to process everything. When they arrived back at the ranch, Olivia insisted on helping with the chores. "I need to do something," she explained. "I cannot just sit idle." Franklin showed her how to feed the chickens he kept for eggs and how to gather the eggs from the coop. She proved to be a quick learner. They worked together in the vegetable garden, pulling weeds and harvesting beans and tomatoes. The physical labor was therapeutic, giving Olivia something to focus on besides her grief. Over the next few days, they fell into a routine. Franklin would wake early and tend to the larger animals while Olivia prepared breakfast. They would work together on various ranch tasks during the day, and in the evenings, they would sit on the porch and watch the sunset. They talked during these times, sharing stories about their lives. Franklin learned that Olivia had grown up in San Francisco, the daughter of a merchant. She had been educated at a private school and had a talent for painting and music. Her life had been comfortable until her parents died, leaving her with little inheritance due to her father's failed business ventures in his final year. Her brother, Oscar, had gone west seeking gold and adventure, and she had not heard from him in months. "I met James through my brother," she explained one evening. They had been friends in school. When Oscar left for Colorado, James stayed in touch with me, checking to make sure I was managing after my father died. His courtship was proper and kind. I did not love him passionately, but I respected him and thought we would have a good life together. He was offering me stability when I desperately needed it. "That is a reasonable foundation for a marriage," Franklin said. "Love can grow from respect and companionship." "Did you ever come close to marrying?" Olivia asked. Franklin was quiet for a moment. "Once. Her name was Margaret. We grew up together in Kansas. I thought we would marry, but her father did not approve of me. I was just a ranch hand with no prospects. She married a banker instead. I heard they moved to Denver. I hope she is happy." "You still think about her, sometimes. But mostly I think that things worked out the way they were meant to. If she had married me, I might never have come to California and built this ranch. Our paths lead us where we need to go, even if we do not understand it at the time." The day of the funeral arrived. Franklin and Olivia dressed in their summer clothes and rode into town. A surprising number of people had gathered at the church, though most of them had not known James or the stage driver. It was simply the way of small communities to support one another in times of tragedy. The service was simple and dignified. Reverend Thomas spoke about the unpredictability of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. Olivia stood dry-eyed through most of it, her grief having moved beyond tears into a deeper, quieter sadness. Franklin stood beside her, a steady presence. After the burial, several townspeople approached to offer their condolences. Mrs. Chen invited Olivia to visit her at the store anytime she needed company. The sheriff reported that the posse was still tracking the Delaney gang, but had not yet caught up with them. A young woman approached Olivia with a shy smile. "Mrs. Rawlings, I am Sarah Henley. I run the schoolhouse here in Eureka. I heard about your education, and I was wondering if you might consider helping at the school. We are always in need of assistance, especially with the younger children. It does not pay much, but it would give you something to do and a small income." Olivia was surprised by the offer. "I would need to think about it. I am not sure how long I will be in Eureka. Of course, the offer stands whenever you are ready." On the ride back to the ranch, Olivia was thoughtful. "People have been so kind. I did not expect that. People out here understand hardship. Most everyone has faced difficult times. It makes us more sympathetic to others' struggles. Franklin, I need to talk to you about my situation. I cannot continue imposing on your hospitality indefinitely. I need to make a plan. You are not imposing, but if you want to talk about your options, I am listening." They reached the ranch and sat on the porch steps, the evening air cooling around them. "I have been thinking," Olivia began. "I could accept Sarah's offer to help at the school. It would give me a purpose and a small income. But I would need a place to stay. I have been wondering if there is a boarding house in town or perhaps a family that might rent me a room." Franklin had been dreading this conversation. Over the past few days, he had grown accustomed to Olivia's presence. The house felt less lonely with her in it, but he knew he could not ask her to stay without it being proper. "There is a boarding house, but it is not particularly nice. And it would take most of what you would earn at the school just to pay for a room there." He hesitated, then continued, "I have another suggestion, but you might find it improper or presumptuous." "What is it?" "You could stay here. I would not ask for rent. You are already helping with the chores, and your presence here has been—" He struggled to find the right words. "It has been pleasant. The house feels more like a home with you in it. I know it is not proper for an unmarried woman to live with an unmarried man, but we could explain to people that you are working for me as a housekeeper in exchange for room and board. That would make it more respectable." Olivia looked at him carefully. "You would do that?" "Let me continue to stay here. I would, but only if you are comfortable with it. I do not want you to feel obligated or unsafe. You have my word that I will continue to be a gentleman and respect your privacy." "I trust you," Olivia said, realizing as she spoke that it was true. In the short time she had known Franklin, he had proven himself to be honorable and kind. "If you are certain it would not be a burden, I would like to stay, at least for a while, until I can figure out a more permanent solution." "It is settled then. And you should accept Sarah's offer about the school. It would be good for you to have something to occupy your time and to get to know more people in town." Over the following weeks, Olivia began working at the schoolhouse 3 days a week. She found that she enjoyed working with the children, and they responded well to her patient teaching style. The work gave her a sense of purpose that she badly needed. On the days she was not at school, she helped Franklin with the ranch work. She learned to milk the cow he kept, to churn butter, and to mend fences. Her hands, which had once been soft from a life of relative ease, became calloused and strong. Franklin found himself looking forward to the end of each day, when they would share a meal and talk about their day's activities. Olivia's presence had indeed transformed his house into a home. She had added small touches: wildflowers in a jar on the table, curtains she had sewn for the windows, and the smell of fresh bread baking. More than the physical changes, though, was the companionship. He had not realized how lonely he had been until he was no longer alone. For Olivia, the routine was healing. The physical work tired her body, and the mental engagement of teaching kept her mind occupied. In the quiet moments, she still grieved for James and for the life she had expected to have, but the sharp pain was gradually giving way to a gentler sadness. She found herself watching Franklin as he worked, noting the way he moved with quiet confidence, the kindness in his eyes when he spoke to the animals, and the considerate way he treated her. One evening in late September, about 6 weeks after the stagecoach attack, they were sitting on the porch after dinner. The air had started to cool with the approach of autumn, and Olivia had wrapped a shawl around her shoulders. Franklin had been teaching her to play checkers, a game he had carved himself from wood during the long winter evenings. "You are getting better at this," Franklin remarked as Olivia captured one of his pieces. "I have a good teacher," she replied with a small smile. They played in comfortable silence for a while. Then Olivia spoke. "Franklin, I need to tell you something. I wrote to my brother Oscar about a month ago, sending the letter to the last address I had for him in Colorado. I received a reply today when I was in town." Franklin looked up, his expression carefully neutral. What did he say? He was shocked to hear about what happened. He offered to send money for me to come to Colorado to stay with him and his wife. I did not know he had married. He said they have a small house and that I would be welcome there. Franklin felt his stomach tighten, but he kept his voice steady. That is good news. You would be with family. Yes, Olivia said slowly. It would be the proper thing to do, the reasonable thing. But, Franklin prompted, sensing hesitation, but I find myself reluctant to go. I have built a life here, small as it is. I enjoy teaching at the school, I have made friends, and, she paused, looking down at the checkerboard, and I would miss you, I would miss this. Franklin felt his heart beat faster. Over the past weeks, his feelings for Olivia had grown from protective concern into something deeper. He had tried to ignore it, telling himself that she was vulnerable and grieving, that she needed a friend and not a suitor. But hearing her say that she would miss him cracked the careful control he had been maintaining. I would miss you too, he said quietly. More than I probably should admit. Olivia looked up at him, and their eyes met. In that moment, the careful boundaries they had maintained shifted. What are we doing, Franklin? She asked softly. I do not know, he admitted. I told myself I was just helping someone in need, that I was being neighborly, but somewhere along the way it became more than that. I look forward to seeing you every morning. I think about you when I am out working. I have come to care for you, Olivia, more than I probably have a right to given your recent loss. I care for you too, Olivia said, her voice trembling slightly. I feel guilty about it. James has been gone only 6 weeks. What kind of woman develops feelings for another man so soon after her husband dies? A human one, Franklin said gently. Grief is not simple or linear, and what you and James had, by your own admission, was based on practical considerations more than passion. You are allowed to feel things, Olivia. You are allowed to want companionship and affection. I do not know if I am ready for this, she admitted. My feelings are so confused, but I know that I do not want to leave. I want to stay here with you. Franklin reached across the checkerboard and took her hand. It was the first time he had touched her beyond helping her mount a horse or handing her something. Her hand was warm in his, and he felt a jolt of connection. Then stay, he said. Stay as long as you want. We do not have to rush into anything or define what this is. We can just see where it leads. People will talk, Olivia said. They already wonder about us living under the same roof. Let them talk. Anyone who matters knows that we are both honorable people. And if it bothers you too much, we can find a way to make it more proper. What do you mean? Franklin took a deep breath. I mean that if you wanted, we could marry. Not right away, but when you feel ready. It would solve the propriety issue and it would give you security. I am not a wealthy man, but I can provide for you, and I promise I would spend every day trying to make you happy. Olivia felt tears spring to her eyes. Are you proposing to me? Not yet, Franklin said with a slight smile. I am saying that I would like to when the time is right. When you are ready. There is no pressure, Olivia. I just want you to know that I see a future with you if you want the same thing. I think I do, she said softly, but I need time. Time to grieve properly, time to sort out my feelings, time to be sure that what I feel for you is real and not just gratitude or a need for security. Take all the time you need. I am not going anywhere. They sat in silence for a while longer, hands still clasped, both processing what had been said. The admission of their feelings had changed things between them, but it was a welcome change. The careful distance they had maintained could now soften into something warmer. In the following months, their relationship deepened naturally. Franklin began courting Olivia properly, with evening walks and small gifts. He brought her wildflowers from the fields and carved her a beautiful wooden box for her mother's locket. Olivia baked his favorite foods and mended his clothes with careful stitches. They talked for hours about everything: their childhoods, their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. The people of Irica watched the developing romance with approval. Franklin was well respected in the community, and Olivia had won hearts with her dedication to the schoolchildren. Mrs. Chen made a point of telling anyone who would listen that it was a perfect match. Even the sheriff, when Franklin ran into him in town, clapped him on the shoulder and told him he was a lucky man. Winter came to the California mountains, bringing cold rains and occasional snow. Franklin spent the short days tending to the animals and making repairs to the ranch buildings. Olivia continued teaching, though the school sometimes closed when the weather was particularly bad. They spent the long evenings by the fire, reading aloud to each other or working on small projects. Franklin was teaching Olivia to whittle, and she was surprisingly good at it. One evening in January, about 5 months after the stagecoach attack, they were sitting close together on the floor in front of the fireplace. Olivia was leaning against Franklin's shoulder, watching the flames dance. She felt peaceful in a way she had not thought possible after the trauma she had endured. "Olivia," Franklin said softly, "I think I am in love with you." She lifted her head to look at him. "I think I am in love with you too." He smiled, a full, genuine smile that transformed his usually serious face. "Then I am going to ask you properly this time. Olivia Reynolds, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you." Franklin pulled her into his arms and kissed her for the first time. It was gentle and sweet and filled with promise. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. "When should we marry?" Olivia asked. "Whenever you are ready. There is no rush." "I would like to wait until spring." Spring feels like a time for new beginnings, and it will have been nearly a year since James died. I think that is respectful. Spring it is then. We can marry in the church in Irica if you would like. I would like that very much. They made their announcement the next Sunday at church, and the congregation erupted in happy congratulations. Reverend Thomas agreed to perform the ceremony in April. The women of the town immediately began planning, insisting on throwing Olivia a small engagement party and helping her prepare for the wedding. Mrs. Chen donated fabric for a wedding dress, and several women gathered to help Olivia sew it. "This will be a much happier occasion than your first wedding," Mrs. Chen said as they worked on the dress one afternoon in her parlor. "I can see how much you and Franklin love each other. It warms my heart." "I never expected to find this kind of happiness again," Olivia admitted. "Franklin saved me in more ways than one. He gave me shelter when I had nowhere to go, but he also gave me hope when I thought I had lost everything." Sarah Henley, who had become a good friend, squeezed Olivia's hand. "And you have brought life back to Franklin. He was always kind, but he was lonely. Now when I see him in town, he smiles. You two are good for each other." The winter slowly gave way to spring. The ranch came alive with new growth, and Franklin's cattle had several new calves. Olivia helped with the birthing, marveling at the miracle of new life. She was no longer the sheltered city girl who had arrived in a torn wedding dress. She had become strong and capable, comfortable with ranch work and country living. One afternoon in early March, Sheriff Brennan rode out to the ranch with news. "We caught the Delaney gang," he announced. "They made a mistake trying to rob a bank in Redding. The whole gang is in custody now, awaiting trial." Olivia felt a wave of emotion. "Will there be a trial?" "Yes, and your testimony will be needed. I know it will be difficult, but it is important." "I will do it," Olivia said firmly. "They need to answer for what they did." Franklin put a protective arm around her shoulders. "I will be with you every step of the way." The trial took place in late March in the county seat. Olivia testified clearly and calmly about the attack, identifying two of the three men as the ones who had killed James and the driver. Her testimony, combined with evidence from other crimes, led to convictions. The gang members were sentenced to long prison terms. Afterward, Olivia felt a sense of closure. "It does not bring James back," she said to Franklin as they rode home, "but at least they will not hurt anyone else." "You were very brave," Franklin said. "I was proud of you." The wedding took place on a beautiful day in mid-April. The church was decorated with spring flowers, and most of the town turned out to celebrate. Olivia wore the dress the women had helped her make, a simple but elegant design in cream-colored silk. Franklin wore his best suit, looking handsome and nervous. As Olivia walked down the aisle, she thought about how different this wedding was from her first. There was no sadness or uncertainty, only joy and anticipation. When she reached Franklin, he took her hands and looked at her with such love that she felt tears of happiness spring to her eyes. Reverend Thomas performed a beautiful ceremony, speaking about love that grows from friendship and the blessing of second chances. When Franklin kissed his bride, the congregation cheered. The celebration afterward was held in the town hall, with food and music and dancing. Franklin and Olivia danced together for the first time, neither of them particularly skilled but both laughing and happy. As the evening wound down, they rode back to the ranch together, now as husband and wife. The house that had sheltered Olivia in her darkest hour was now truly her home. Franklin carried her over the threshold, both of them laughing at the traditional gesture. "Welcome home, Mrs. Zimmerman," he said, setting her down gently. "It feels strange to have a different last name again," Olivia said. "But this time it feels right." They stood in the middle of the room, holding each other close. "I promise to spend every day making you happy," Franklin said. "To be the husband you deserve." "And I promise to be a true partner to you in all things," Olivia replied. "To build this life together with you." They kissed, and this time there was no need to hold back. They were married, committed to each other for life. The tragedy that had brought them together had transformed into something beautiful. The first year of their marriage was filled with hard work and deep contentment. Olivia continued teaching at the school, finding that she loved shaping young minds. Franklin expanded his herd and improved the ranch buildings. Together, they worked on building a real home, adding a room to the house and planting an orchard. In the summer, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. Franklin was overjoyed at the prospect of becoming a father. He became even more protective of Olivia, trying to prevent her from doing any heavy work. "I am pregnant, not fragile," she laughed as he insisted on carrying water buckets for her. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time." "But none of those women were carrying my child," he replied, gently touching her still flat stomach. "I just want to take care of you both." Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby boy in early March, almost exactly a year after their wedding. They named him Samuel Franklin Zimmerman. Samuel had his father's brown eyes and his mother's auburn hair. Franklin was a devoted father, often found rocking his son to sleep or singing him quiet songs. "I never thought I would have this," Franklin confessed one night as they watched Samuel sleep in the cradle he had built. "A wife I love, a child, a real family. I thought I was meant to live alone. And I thought my life was over when that stagecoach was attacked," Olivia replied. "But somehow we found each other. We built something beautiful from tragedy." When Samuel was 3 months old, Olivia received a letter from her brother Oscar. He and his wife had decided to move to California, tired of the harsh Colorado winters. They hoped to settle somewhere near Eureka so the family could be close. Olivia was thrilled at the prospect of having her brother nearby. Oscar and his wife Margaret arrived in June. Oscar was shocked by the transformation in his sister. The fragile, grieving woman he had feared for had been replaced by a strong, confident woman with a ready smile and dirt under her fingernails. He approved heartily of Franklin, and the two men became fast friends. Oscar and Margaret purchased a small property about 5 miles from Franklin and Olivia's ranch. The two families saw each other often, and Samuel gained cousins when Margaret gave birth to twin girls the following year. The years passed peacefully. Franklin and Olivia's ranch prospered, becoming one of the most successful small operations in the area. Olivia eventually stopped teaching at the school to focus on raising their growing family. 2 years after Samuel, they had a daughter they named Rose. 3 years after that came another son, Henry. The house expanded to accommodate the growing family. Franklin proved to be a wonderful father, patient and loving. He taught his children to ride and work the ranch, but he also encouraged their education and creativity, values that Olivia strongly supported. Olivia never forgot James or the tragic circumstances that had brought her to Franklin. Once a year, on the anniversary of the stagecoach attack, she would visit his grave in the Eureka Cemetery and leave flowers. Franklin always accompanied her, understanding that honoring her past was part of who she was. "You think he would approve of how your life turned out?" Franklin asked one year as they stood at the grave. "I think he would," Olivia said. "James was a kind man. He would have wanted me to be happy and safe. You have given me both of those things and so much more." As their children grew, Olivia and Franklin told them the story of how they had met. They did not hide the tragedy or the difficulty, but they also emphasized the themes of kindness, second chances, and building something new from loss. "Papa saved Mama when she had nothing," Samuel would tell his younger siblings with pride. "And then they fell in love and built all of this." "That is partly true," Olivia would correct gently. "But we saved each other. I gave your father a family and he gave me a home. We were both lonely and we found each other at exactly the right time." On their 10th wedding anniversary, Franklin surprised Olivia with a gift. He had commissioned a painting from a traveling artist who had come through Eureka. It depicted the ranch house with the mountains in the background, the orchard in bloom, and the family standing together in front. "This is our life," Franklin said as Olivia stared at the painting with tears in her eyes. "Everything we built together, I wanted to capture it." "It is perfect," she whispered. "Absolutely perfect." They hung the painting over the fireplace, where it remained for the rest of their lives, a testament to their love and their journey. The children grew and eventually began their own lives. Samuel took over the ranch, expanding it further. Rose married a doctor and moved to Sacramento, while Henry became a teacher, inspired by his mother's stories of her time at the Eureka school. As Franklin and Olivia grew older, they spent more time on the porch swing Franklin had built, watching the sunset and reminiscing about their years together. "You ever regret it?" Franklin asked one evening when they were both in their 60s. "The life you might have had if that stagecoach had not been attacked." Olivia took his weathered hand in hers. "How could I regret anything that led me to you? Yes, what happened to James was a tragedy. Yes, losing everything I owned was terrifying. But out of that darkness came the greatest love I could have imagined. I have spent 30 years married to my best friend, raising wonderful children, building a life that matters. I regret nothing." Franklin kissed her temple. "When you said I was your only hope that day, I had no idea what we would become to each other. I told you then that you were my hope, but you became so much more. You became my love, my partner, my home. You gave me a life beyond anything I dreamed possible." They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, watching the sun paint the sky in brilliant colors. The ranch stretched out before them, a testament to years of hard work and dedication. The house behind them was filled with memories and love. As the stars began to appear, Olivia rested her head on Franklin's shoulder, content in the knowledge that she was exactly where she belonged. The scared, desperate woman who had stood beside an overturned stagecoach 30 years ago was gone, transformed through love and partnership into someone strong and whole. Franklin wrapped his arm around his wife, thinking about the strange turns life could take. A decision to ride toward gunshots instead of away from them had changed everything. An act of simple kindness had led to a lifetime of love. "I love you," he said quietly, as he had said thousands of times before. "I love you too," she replied, the words as meaningful now as they had been the first time she said them. They remained on the porch until the cold night air drove them inside, where a fire crackled in the hearth and grandchildren's drawings decorated the walls. This house that had once sheltered a desperate widow had become a home filled with decades of laughter, tears, growth, and abiding love. In the years that followed, Franklin and Olivia continued to be pillars of the Eureka community. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with a large gathering of family and friends. By then, they had 7 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. Franklin passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 80, with Olivia holding his hand. She mourned him deeply, but without regret, grateful for the 51 years they had shared. She lived another 5 years, spending her time with her children and grandchildren, telling stories of the old days and the remarkable man who had given her shelter when she had nothing. When Olivia died at the age of 78, she was laid to rest beside Franklin in the Eureka Cemetery, not far from where James had been buried all those years ago. The headstone Samuel commissioned for his parents read, "Franklin and Olivia Zimmerman, beloved husband and wife." They found each other when hope was lost and built a love that lasted forever. The ranch continued in the Zimmerman family for generations, each inheritor knowing the story of how it all began with an act of kindness on a hot August day in 1878. The painting that hung over the fireplace remained in its place, a reminder of the beautiful life that had grown from tragedy. And in the town of Eureka, the story of the cowboy who sheltered a bride who had lost everything became something of a legend, told and retold as an example of how love can emerge from the darkest circumstances, and how a single decision to help someone in need can change 2 lives forever.